you will hear a telephone conversation between a customer service agent at a specialized travel agency and a client organizing a scientific research expedition. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 10. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Deep Ocean Expeditions booking line. This is Clara speaking. How may I assist you today?
Hello, Clara. I'm calling to finalize our group charter booking for the Marine Assessment Cruise this autumn. The registration is under our institute's name, Ocean Biospheres Limited. That's spelled O-C-E-A-N, then Biospheres, B-I-O-S-P-H-E-R-E-S.
Thank you. Let me check the database. Yes, Ocean Biospheres. You're looking at the 14-day tracking voyage. For our operations ledger, we need to clarify your specific primary research focus area. Is it deep sea tracking or coastal shelf mapping?
Neither, actually. We modified our grant proposal last month. Our core objective for this specific voyage is tracking microplastics distribution variants across the current zones.
Microplastics. Got it. I've updated the log. Now, regarding pricing, the baseline vessel rental fee stands at $15,000. However, your team opted for our high-precision laboratory suite package, which tacks on an extra $1,200.
Wait, I thought our institutional affiliation knocked 7% off any supplemental upgrades.
My mistake. You're entirely right. The waiver reduces the laboratory suite fee down to exactly $1,116, making your absolute cumulative invoice amount $16,116.
Excellent. $16,116 is fine. Now, about our heavy sample storage locker requirements. The standard units won't contain our containment vats. We need a continuous deck space that measures exactly 5.5 meters in length to securely mount our custom storage racks.
5.5 meters long. I'll make a specialized note for our deck configuration engineers. Finally, who is listed as the on-site chief security officer in charge of equipment safety parameters?
That would be Dr. Raymond Thorne. That's Thorne. He'll oversee the launch protocols on day 1.
Excellent. Dr. Thorne's name has been logged. Now, regarding deck space allocation constraints, are there any structural elements we must avoid when loading your specialized gear?
Yes, absolutely. Under no circumstances can our sensitive sonar arrays be positioned near the emergency backup generator. The acoustic vibrations interfere heavily with the hydrophones. I know some crews avoid being near the main exhaust stacks due to residue, but our priority is staying clear of the backup generator.
Understood. Keeping far clear of the generator area. Next, what auxiliary monitoring equipment must be delivered to our secure dry dock precisely 48 hours prior to departure for pre-fitting?
The satellite telemetry dishes. The winches and towing cables can be loaded on embarkation morning, but those telemetry dishes need to be securely calibrated and mounted on the top bridge mast 2 days ahead of schedule.
Noted. Telemetry dishes marked for early delivery. Now, looking over your premium coverage tier benefits, your package includes several complimentary institutional perks. Which option would you like to activate?
We don't have much use for the satellite phone data extensions, but the team explicitly requested that we take advantage of the guaranteed inclusion of 5 extra laboratory entry passes for our visiting international analysts.
Wonderful! 5 extra research laboratory passes granted. To clear these into the maritime framework, we require validation. You must send us a scan of your official agency registration certificate. The Port Authority will not accept a standard liability statement or proof of funding. They need the registration document before departure.
No problem. I'll have our administrator email that over. Where can we check our finalized voyage course adjustments?
To maintain security parameters, we don't send route updates via open email channels anymore. Once your registration certificate clears, your final navigational chart data will be accessible exclusively via your secure cloud dashboard.
That works perfectly. Thank you, Clara.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear the director of a marine biotechnology facility welcoming a group of postgraduate research fellows and explaining the facility rules, campus upgrades, and layout. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Milner Marine Institute. It's fantastic to see our new cohort of postgraduate fellows ready to embark on your respective projects. My goal today is to quickly orient you regarding our operational safety protocol revisions and recent structural transformations. First, regarding access control updates. Previously, our research staff relied on magnetic security cards to gain entry into our secure clean rooms. However, due to recent security optimization protocols, we have entirely phased out card authorization. Entry now exclusively hinges on biometric validation. You must register your thumbprint scanning sequence at the main desk by 5 p.m. today. Do not attempt to use your old photo identity cards at the turnstiles, as they will trigger an automated lockdown. Second, let's talk about funding allocations. Our primary operational grant from the National Sciences Council was significantly restructured this term. While our initial allocation proposal earmarked substantial resources for expanding the physical sample library, the Council redirected those specific funds. Instead, 80% of our capital windfall has been poured directly into installing specialized ventilation. This advanced airflow installation ensures chemical extraction compounds are localized instantly, protecting personal health. The procurement of heavy cryogenic freezers has consequently been delayed until next autumn. Finally, a critical reminder regarding safety apparel. While standard laboratory smocks are mandatory across all campus sectors, our high-risk biochemical isolation chamber requires advanced containment protocols. When working within that zone, standard safety goggles do not provide adequate isolation from hazardous airborne particles. It is now a strict legal policy that you must equip a full facepiece shield before stepping past the pressurized airlocks.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Moving onward to our architectural layout adjustments. Over the winter break, we initiated an extensive reconfiguration of the central research wing to streamline our workflows. I know many of you have maps from last year's prospectus, so please pay close attention to where modules are now situated. The primary genetic sequencing laboratory, which historically occupied the ground floor corner, right next to the administrative offices, has been completely relocated. It now sits in the northern quadrant, positioned directly opposite the chemical storage vault for faster sample transport. The student IT computer hub, which used to share a corridor with the staff dining room on the second floor, has also migrated. To provide a completely silent working zone, far away from noisy breakout lounges, it has been moved into the basement level, right below the reference archives room. Additionally, our oceanographic modeling simulator suite has been dramatically upgraded. To support the heavy cooling arrays and substantial power needs of the new computational architecture, we have placed this suite on the upper rooftop level, directly above the engineering workshop. This maximizes heat dissipation efficiency. Lastly, our recreational lounge and coffee station, which was previously situated in the basement vault area, has been brought up to the ground level. You can now find it directly adjacent to the main botanical glasshouse courtyard, giving you a wonderful bright green space to unwind during your breaks. Right, that wraps up our structural tour. Let's head over to the main corridor to begin our physical walkthrough.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear a university tutor, Dr. Aris Vance, and 2 postgraduate archaeology students, Chloe and Liam, discussing their research project framework on ancient architectural acoustics. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Come in, Chloe, Liam, take a seat. I've reviewed your initial draft proposal investigating the archaeoacoustics of Roman amphitheaters. It's an intriguing cross-disciplinary space, but your methodologies feel slightly unfocused. Liam, what's your primary critique of your data collection phase so far?
Well, Dr. Vance, I originally believed our main bottleneck would be securing structural permits from the Regional Heritage Council. But surprisingly, they authorized our acoustic sound testing within 48 hours. The real obstacle was our computational telemetry software. The signal processing algorithms kept malfunctioning due to ambient wind distortion, meaning our initial frequency resonance readings were completely unreliable.
Exactly. And because the algorithm output was corrupted, we couldn't properly isolate the echoing parameters from the background environmental noise.
That's a common pitfall when executing open-air sound field testing. Now, let's consider your literature review. You've heavily cited Professor Henrich's 2018 treatise on limestone structural density. Chloe, how does his thesis intersect with your current project hypothesis?
Henrich posits that ancient stone degradation patterns alter sonic absorption matrices over centuries. I initially argued that this dynamic rendered historic evaluations void. However, looking at our baseline samples, I realized Henrich's work actually confirms that structural calcification stabilizes sound reflection properties rather than diminishing them. It completely reversed my initial assumptions.
Yes, and it means the auditory profiles of these sites today are remarkably identical to what ancient spectators encountered during performances, despite the visible physical weathering.
Fascinating. Now, what adjustments have you made to your upcoming field research budget? I notice your travel expenditure requests are quite substantial.
We managed to curb expenses significantly. We cut down our initial accommodation estimates by partnering with a local excavation team's base camp. However, we had to reallocate those savings into specialized insurance. The University Compliance Office refused to authorize our deployment unless we secured comprehensive coverage for our prototype laser scanning equipment.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Excellent. It's always wise to have full hardware indemnification. Let's look closely at your timeline for the second phase, the digital structural modeling synthesis. How are you distributing the developmental responsibilities?
We've mapped out a strict division of labor to ensure we hit our milestone goals before the winter symposium. Liam will be handling the raw acoustic data importing phase, specifically mapping the sound wave trajectories across our 3D spatial models.
Right. And Chloe will take charge of the algorithm calibration phase. She'll configure the sound reflection variables based on different structural materials like marble and brick.
And what about the final collaborative deliverable? Your thesis requires an interactive multimedia component to supplement the written text.
We debated creating a complete virtual reality walkthrough of the amphitheater, but given our timeline constraints, we decided against it. Instead, our final collaborative asset will be an interactive audio spreadsheet. It will allow researchers to select specific coordinates on the venue map and instantly listen to simulated vocal clarity feedback calculations.
Yes, we've already built a programming framework for the map interface. We just need to inject our verified field telemetry metrics.
Outstanding. Ensure that your submission is securely indexed. Our department requires all raw data arrays to be uploaded to the university's institutional repository before grading can commence. Do not try to email files or submit an external hard drive. It must pass through the repository server portal.
Understood, Dr. Vance. We'll make sure it's uploaded correctly. Thank you for your guidance.
That is the end of Section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will hear an archaeology professor delivering a lecture on the spatial layout and discovery of the Skara Brae Neolithic settlement. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon, class. Today we are focusing on the structural morphology of the prehistoric settlement discovered at Skara Brae. This location offers us an unparalleled window into the architectural engineering of the late Neolithic era. Let's look at the spatial configuration of the central compound. When you examine the site layout map, you will find that the architectural footprint follows a strictly centralized system. Let's trace the primary coordinates starting from the main entrance path on the far eastern side. As visitors move directly westward into the compound via this main stone pathway, the first structure they immediately encounter on their right, situated in the prominent northeastern quadrant, is the ancient granary. This stone-lined vault was used extensively for storing cereal crops away from floor moisture. If you continue walking straight along the western axis, past the central junction, you arrive at the westernmost edge of the site. Positioned right at this western terminus, opposite the main pathway entry point, sits the chief's dwelling. This structure is significantly larger than neighboring houses and features a stone-carved hearth positioned dead center. Now, let's look toward the southern sectors of the compound. Located directly below the central courtyard space, in the south-central zone, lies the engineering workshop. Excavators identified this space by a massive accumulation of stone flakes, tool cores, and primitive chert blades. Tucked neatly into the far southwestern pocket of the site, directly adjacent to the chief's dwelling, is the sacred burial site. It is easily identifiable on your plan by 3 monolithic stone slabs oriented toward the midwinter sunset. Finally, positioned immediately to the left of the main entrance pathway as you first walk into the complex, occupying the southeastern quadrant, is the water well. This deep rock cut ensured a steady supply of fresh water without requiring inhabitants to exit the outer protective palisade walls. Moving past the physical orientation of the settlement, recent soil sample evaluations have profoundly transformed our understanding of Neolithic survival strategies. Historically, researchers assumed these communities survived purely through hunting and basic foraging. However, new organic residue analysis reveals that the primary element driving their economic sustainability was actually agriculture. Cultivation was far more sophisticated than previously credited. Furthermore, the architectural durability of these structures is due to a specific choice of material. Instead of using perishable logs or timber, the inhabitants constructed thick walls out of sandstone. This resilient material provided exceptional insulation against severe oceanic gales. To prevent structural collapse from eroding foundations, builders mixed a primitive binding plaster. Chemical testing shows this adhesive compound was composed of clay blended with crushed seashells, which provided structural integrity when exposed to constant humidity. Moreover, the unique interior layout of the houses features stone-built furniture, including dressers and storage boxes. Most notably, the beds were uniformly constructed along the side walls of each house, rather than near the centre hearths, maximising internal floor space. Lastly, archaeological evidence reveals how the community eventually dissolved. Contrary to older folklore suggesting a sudden cataclysmic storm, sediment data confirms that abandonment was a gradual process driven by persistent desertification. As shifting sand dunes systematically choked their water supply and fertile fields, the population slowly migrated inland.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.